A 10-year-old girl stood in a room full of armed guards and said words that would either save an emperor or get her killed.
You are not sick, Your Majesty. Your brother is making you sick on purpose.
Everyone in the room went quiet. Guards put their hands on their swords. Her father looked scared, but the girl did not move. She knew what she smelled, and what she smelled was poison. But to understand how a foreign child ended up accusing a prince of murder, we need to go back 2 weeks earlier to a dusty road leading into the capital city of Joseon. Amina could smell the city before she could see it. That's how her gift worked. While her father, Kofi, saw the world through colors and shapes, Amina experienced everything through scent. Right now, Hanseong smells like fish markets, burning coal, sesame oil, and about 10,000 people living close together. It wasn't unpleasant, just strong. "Papa, we're close," she said, sitting up straighter in the cart. Her father smiled, the kind of smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. "How close?" "Maybe an hour. The smell of the harbor is getting stronger." Kofi laughed, a deep, warm sound. "Your mother used to do the same thing. She could smell rain 3 days before it arrived." Amina had heard this story before, but she never got tired of it. Her mother had died 3 years ago from a fever that no medicine could cure. Sometimes Amina wondered if her mother had smelled death coming, the way Amina could smell storms. She hoped not. That would have been terrible, knowing and not being able to stop it. "Tell me again why we're going to the palace," Amina said, even though she knew the answer. "Because the emperor himself invited us. Do you know how rare that is? We spent 5 years building trust along these trade routes. 5 years proving that our medicines work, that our word is good, that we know plants better than anyone else traveling these roads. And now we get to meet an emperor." "Now we get to meet an emperor," Kofi agreed. He glanced at his daughter, his expression turning serious. "Amina, listen to me. When we're in the palace, you need to be careful. We're foreigners. Guests, yes, but still outsiders. People will be watching us." "I know, Papa. I'll be good." "You're always good. I'm just saying be smart too." The walls of Hanseong appeared on the horizon, tall and impressive. Amina had seen many cities during the travels, but this one felt different. Everything here seemed carefully planned and organized, like someone had drawn it all out before building it. The streets were cleaner than she expected, and people moved with purpose, like they all had important places to be. Their escort met them at the main gate. A court official named Lord Park, who spoke to Kofi with respect, but looked at Amina like she was some kind of strange puzzle he couldn't solve. "Master Kofi, welcome to Hanseong. The Emperor is eager to see your collection of medicinal herbs. And this must be your daughter?" "Yes, this is Amina. She assists me in my work." Lord Park nodded, though Amina could tell he didn't really understand why a child would be involved in merchant business. "Very well. Please follow me. We've prepared quarters for you in the guest wing of the palace." As they traveled through the city toward the palace, Amina watched everything with wide eyes. Street vendors sold steaming buns, children played in alleyways, and everywhere she looked there was movement and life. But as they got closer to the palace, something changed. The air itself felt heavier, sadder somehow. And then she smelled it. It was faint at first, underneath the incense and flowers and cooking food, but Amina had spent 3 years memorizing every plant her father worked with, learning which ones healed and which ones killed. This smell was wrong. It was metal and bitterness and something rotting from the inside out. Her face must have changed because her father looked at her with concern. "What is it?" She shook her head slightly. Not here, not in front of Lord Park. But Kofi understood. He'd learned to read his daughter's expressions the way she read sense. The palace itself was beautiful. Amina had to admit that. Red pillars, green tile roofs, courtyards full of carefully trimmed trees. Everything was precise and elegant, but that wrong smell got stronger the deeper they went into the complex. Hey everyone, before we continue this story, I just want to say this is going to be intense. There's mystery, there's poison, and there's an incredibly brave girl who risks everything for what's right. If you love stories about courage and justice, you're going to want to stick around until the end. Trust me on this one. Now let's continue. Lord Park led them to their quarters, a comfortable set of rooms with sleeping mats, low tables, and windows that looked out onto a garden. Please rest from your journey. Tomorrow morning you will have your first audience with Emperor Li Xin. It is a great honor. After Lord Park left, Kofi closed the door carefully and turned to his daughter. What did you smell? Something bad, Papa. Something really bad. It's all over the palace, but especially strong near the center, where I think the Emperor's rooms must be. What kind of bad? Amina closed her eyes, trying to identify it. Decay. Like something dying slowly. And incense, lots of incense, like someone's trying to cover up the decay smell. Kofi sat down heavily on one of the cushions. Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe someone is sick. Maybe the smell is coming from somewhere else. But Amina could see the worry in his eyes. They'd both learned to trust her nose, and her nose was telling her something was very wrong in this palace. That night, Amina barely slept. She kept thinking about that smell, trying to place it exactly. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite remember what. The next morning, servants came to help them prepare for the audience with the Emperor. They brought fine clothes for both of them, much nicer than anything Amina owned. She felt strange wearing silk, like she was pretending to be someone important. You look like a princess, her father said, straightening his own formal robes. I look like I'm playing dress-up. That too. The audience hall was enormous, with dozens of officials and nobles standing in careful rows. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Emperor Li Xin. And the moment Amina saw him, her heart broke a little. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, but he moved like an old man. His skin was pale, almost gray. His hands trembled when he lifted them. His hair was thin, and when he spoke, his voice sounded tired, like talking took effort. But his eyes were kind. Master Kofi, the Emperor said, and despite his weakness, there was genuine warmth in his tone. Thank you for traveling so far to visit our court. Your reputation precedes you. They say you know every plant that grows between the western coast and the eastern sea. Kofi bowed deeply. Your Majesty is too generous. I know many plants, but I learn new things every day. And you brought your daughter. The Emperor's gaze fell on Amina, and he smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that apologized for existing. Hello, young one. What's your name? Amina, Your Majesty. What an interesting name. Tell me, Amina, do you enjoy traveling with your father? Most adults asked children boring questions and didn't really listen to the answers, but Emperor Li Xin seemed genuinely curious, like he actually wanted to know about her life. Yes, Your Majesty. I get to see new places and learn about different plants. My papa is teaching me everything he knows. That's wonderful. Education is precious, especially for the young, the Emperor started. The Emperor, to say something else, but then a coughing fit overtook him. A servant rushed forward with a cup of tea, which he drank gratefully. And that's when Amina smelled it clearly. The tea. The smell was coming from the tea. Her face must have changed completely because her father's hand touched her shoulder in warning. She forced herself to stay calm, to keep her expression neutral. But inside, her mind was racing. She knew that smell. She'd memorized it along with dozens of other dangerous plants. Dansol root. Her father used tiny amounts of it to kill rats in their storage warehouses. It didn't kill them quickly. It made them sick slowly, made them unable to have babies, made their fur fall out, made them weak until finally their hearts just stopped. The Emperor was drinking Dansol root. "Are you all right, child?" the Emperor asked, noticing her stare. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm sorry. I was just, I've never seen a real emperor before." He laughed softly. "Well, I'm not much to look at these days. The gods have seen fit to test me with illness. But I appreciate your honesty." A man stepped forward from beside the Emperor's throne. He was handsome, confident, with the kind of smile that made people want to trust him immediately. "My brother is too modest. He bears his burden with great courage. I pray daily for his recovery." "This is Prince Kun, my younger brother," the Emperor explained. "He has been my greatest support during this difficult time." Prince Kun bowed slightly to Kofi and Amina. "Master Kofi, your medicines are famous. Perhaps you have something that could help my brother?" "I would be honored to try, Your Highness, though I would need to understand the illness better first." Of course. We can discuss that later. For now, let us not tire the Emperor further." The audience ended shortly after, with promises to meet again soon. As they walked back to their quarters, Amina's hand found her father's. "Not here," he whispered. "Wait until we're alone." The moment their door closed, the words burst out of her. "Papa, the tea. The Emperor's tea. It had Dansol root in it, I'm absolutely sure." Kofi's face went pale. "Amina, do you understand what you're saying? If the Emperor is being poisoned, that means someone in this palace is trying to kill him." "I know what I smelled, Papa. It was Dansol root. You made me memorize it. You made me smell it over and over until I could identify it with my eyes closed." Her father started pacing, something he only did when he was very worried. "Even if you're right, what can we do? We're foreigners, Amina. Guests. If we accuse someone of poisoning the Emperor and we're wrong, they'll execute us both. What if I'm right and we say nothing? Then we watch a man die, and we live with that forever." Kofi sat down, his head in his hands. "This is bigger than us, daughter. This is palace politics, royal family, business. These are dangerous waters." Amina sat beside him. "He was kind to me, Papa. He asked about my travels and actually listened to my answer. He looked so sad, like he had already given up. And all this time, he thinks the gods are punishing him, but really someone is just putting poison in his tea. If you're right, we need proof. Real proof, not just what you smelled. Because no one is going to believe a 10-year-old girl over whoever's doing this. Then I'll find proof." Kofi looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and fear. "You're so much like your mother. She never could walk away from someone who needed help, either." Over the next few days, while Kofi met with court officials to discuss trade agreements and medicine supplies, Amina started her investigation. She was careful, always staying in areas where guests were allowed, always having a reason for being wherever she was. The palace servants were her best source of information. Most of them ignored her completely, which was perfect. Adults rarely paid attention to children, especially foreign children who seemed harmless. She could slip through corridors and listen to conversations without anyone noticing. She made her first real friend on the third day. A kitchen maid named Minji, about 14 years old, who was carrying a heavy basket of vegetables, stumbled right in front of Amina. Carrots and radishes were scattered everywhere. "Oh no, oh no," Minji muttered, scrambling to pick them up. Amina helped, gathering the rolling vegetables. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just clumsy. Thank you for helping." "Wait, you're the foreign girl everyone's talking about, aren't you? The one who travels with the merchant?" "That's me. I'm Amina." "I'm Minji. Is it true you've been all the way to the Western Kingdoms? What's it like? Is the ocean really as big as they say?" Amina found herself smiling. Minji had the kind of open, friendly face that made you want to tell her things. "The ocean is bigger than you can imagine. It goes on forever, all the way to the edge of the world." "That sounds amazing. I've never been outside Hanseong." "Well, I went to my cousin's village once, but that doesn't really count." They talked while walking back toward the kitchens, and Amina learned that Minji had worked at the palace for 2 years, ever since her family needed extra money for her grandmother's medicine. She was lonely, she admitted. The other servants were nice, but they were all much older and treated her like a child. "It's nice to talk to someone my own age." "Well, close to my age," Minji said. "Even if you're only here for a little while." "Maybe we can be friends while I'm here," Amina suggested. "I don't know many people in the palace." "Really? You'd want to be friends with a kitchen maid?" "Why not? You seem nice. And you haven't asked me weird questions about my hair or skin like some people do." Minji laughed. "That would be rude. Besides, I think your hair is beautiful. I wish mine had that many strands in it." Over the next several days, Amina spent time with Minji whenever possible. She didn't pump her for information directly. That would have been suspicious. Instead, she just listened while Minji talked about palace life, about palace gossip, about palace maids' routines. And eventually, Minji mentioned the emperor's tea. "Prince Kun is so devoted," Minji sighed. They were sitting in a quiet corner of one of the gardens, sharing some honey cakes Minji had smuggled out of the kitchens. "Every single morning, he prepares the emperor's tea blend himself. He won't let anyone else do it." Amina's heart started beating faster, but she kept her voice casual. "Really? Why does he do it himself?" "He says it's the only thing he can do to help his brother. The emperor is so sick, you know. Everyone says it's a curse from the gods, punishment for something, but Prince Kun refuses to give up hope. He found some ancient remedies in old texts and makes them fresh every day. That's very dedicated. He's wonderful. Everyone loves him. When the emperor, when he passes, Prince Kun will be a great ruler." Amina noticed how Minji said when, not if. Like everyone had already accepted that Emperor Li Xin was going to die. "Does anyone know what's wrong with the emperor?" Amina asked. "Some kind of rotting blood disease. At least that's what the royal physician says. Dr. Yoon has been trying to cure it for years, but nothing works. The emperor just keeps getting weaker. It's very sad." Later that day, Amina convinced her father to take a walk through the palace gardens. They needed to talk, and gardens were safer than rooms where servants might overhear. "Prince Kun makes the tea himself," she told her father quietly. "Every morning. He won't let anyone else prepare it." "That could mean anything, Amina. Maybe he's just being a good brother. Or maybe he's the one poisoning the emperor." Kofi stopped walking. "That's a very serious accusation. Prince Kun is beloved by everyone. He prays publicly for his brother. He visits him daily. He's doing everything a devoted brother should do." "Exactly, Papa. He's doing everything a devoted brother should do. It's perfect. No one would ever suspect him." "What possible reason would he have?" Amina looked at her father like he was being deliberately dense. "If the emperor dies, who becomes the next emperor?" The realization hit Kofi like a tsunami. The younger brother. They walked in silence for a while, both thinking. Finally, Kofi spoke. We need to be very, very careful. If you're right, Prince Kun has been planning this for a long time. He's smart, he's patient, and he's in a position of power. We are not. I know, Papa. Do you? Because if we make one mistake, if we accuse him without absolute proof, we won't just be executed. They'll make an example of us. Foreign merchants who came to the palace and spread lies about the royal family. The fear in his voice made Amina's stomach tight, but she couldn't let it go. So what do? We gather evidence. Real, physical evidence. Something that can't be disputed. The next day, Amina explored the gardens more thoroughly. There were dozens of different sections, some for beauty, some for vegetables, some for medicinal herbs. The medicinal herb garden was restricted, but Amina had learned that if you walked confidently, as if you belonged somewhere, most people didn't question you. She found the dansul root growing in a section near Prince Kun's private quarters. It was tucked among other medicinal plants, disguised as just another herb. Someone who didn't know what they were looking for would never notice it. But Amina did. She didn't touch it. That would be evidence tampering. Instead, she memorized exactly where it was, what it looked like, and what was growing around it. When she told her father, he wanted to see it for himself. They went together the next morning, pretending to admire the palace gardens like tourists. Kofi studied the plant carefully. That's dansul root, he confirmed quietly. No question about it. Why would it be growing in the palace garden unless someone was using it? In small amounts, very small amounts, some physicians use it to treat certain conditions. But this much? This is enough to poison someone for years. The pieces were falling into place, but they still needed more. Amina needed to understand the full scope of the plan and needed to know exactly how Prince Kun had pulled this off without anyone suspecting. She asked Minji about the royal physician. Dr. Yoon. He's very old, very respected. He's been the royal physician for 30 years. Why do you ask? I'm just curious about the emperor's illness. My father deals with medicine, so I wonder about these things. Dr. Yoon is very sad about not being able to cure the emperor. I heard him talking to one of the senior servants once. He said he's never seen anything like this disease, that it must be supernatural in origin. Has he always been treating the emperor? Minji thought about it. I think Prince Kun brought him in, actually. When the emperor first started showing symptoms, Prince Kun recommended Dr. Yoon because he's the best physician in the kingdom. Another piece clicked into place. Prince Kun had chosen the physician, someone he could manipulate. Amina knew she needed to speak with Dr. Yoon directly. But how could a 10-year-old girl get an audience with the royal physician? The answer came unexpectedly. Her father was asked to present some of his rarer herbs to the palace medical staff to see if any could be useful for the emperor's treatment. Amina went with him as his assistant. Dr. Yoon was exactly as Minji described. Old, dignified, with sad eyes that had seen too much suffering. He examined Kofi's herbs with interest, asking intelligent questions about their properties and uses. Your daughter assists you? He asked, noticing how Amina handed her father exactly the right herb before he even asked for it. She has a gift, Kofi explained. She can identify any plant by scent alone. Dr. Yoon's eyebrows rose. Is that so? How remarkable. It's not that special, Amina said modestly. My papa taught me well. Still, olfactory memory of that precision is very rare. Can you identify what I'm brewing in that pot? He gestured to a small brazier where something was steaming. Amina walked closer and inhaled carefully. Ginger root, ginseng, and licorice. You're making a digestive tonic. Extraordinary, Dr. Yoon murmured. You didn't even need to see the ingredients. This was her chance. Amina knew she had to be careful, but she needed information. Dr. Yoon, sir, can I ask you about the Emperor's illness? My papa and I were wondering if there's anything in our collection that might help. The old physician's expression became even sadder. I appreciate the offer, child, but I fear this is beyond herbalism. The Emperor suffers from something I've never encountered in all my years of practice. What are the symptoms? Fatigue, hair loss, tremors in the extremities, infertility, a general wasting away of the body's vital forces. I've tried every treatment I know. Nothing helps. Amina's mind was racing. Every single symptom Dr. Yoon listed matched Dansul root poisoning. But she couldn't just blurt that out. She needed to lead him to the conclusion himself. How long has the Emperor been sick? She asked. The symptoms began about 4 years ago. Mild at first, just some fatigue and weakness. But they've progressed steadily. Prince Kun has been invaluable in his brother's care. He discovered an ancient remedy in historical texts, a special tea blend that slows the disease's progression. And there it was. The full picture. Prince Kun had started administering small doses of Dansul root 4 years ago. The symptoms appeared mysterious and difficult to diagnose. Then Kun brought in Dr. Yoon, a respected physician who would believe what he was told. Kun then discovered a remedy, which was actually just more poison, carefully measured to keep the Emperor alive, but steadily declining. Everyone saw a devoted brother trying desperately to save his sibling. No one suspected murder. It was brilliant. It was horrible. And Amina had no idea how to prove it. The tea blend, Amina said carefully. Does Prince Kun make it himself? Yes, every morning. He's very particular about the measurements. Says it must be prepared with exact precision or it won't work. Has it helped? Dr. Yoon hesitated. It's difficult to say. The Emperor hasn't gotten better, but perhaps without it, he would have died already. Prince Kun believes it's buying us time. Buying time? Amina thought bitterly. Buying time until the perfect moment to increase the dose and finish the job. That night, Amina and her father sat in their quarters and went over everything they knew. It all makes sense, Kofi said. Prince Kun controls every aspect of the poison. He chose the physician, he prepares the medicine, he sets the narrative that everyone believes. It's a perfect conspiracy. But we can't prove it, Amina said. Not in a way the court would accept. I can smell the poison. You can identify the plant, but that's not enough. Prince Kun could say the plant is for legitimate medical purposes. He could say I'm mistaken about the smell. He could say we're foreign merchants trying to cause trouble. And everyone would believe him over us. They sat in frustrated silence. Knowing the truth and being able to prove it were two completely different things. There has to be a way, Amina said finally. We didn't come all this way just to watch a good man die. Her father looked at her with both love and worry. You care about him, the Emperor. He was kind to me, and nobody deserves what's happening to him. He thinks he's cursed by the gods, Papa. He thinks he's being punished for something he did wrong. But he's not cursed. He's just being murdered very slowly by someone he loves and trusts. The injustice of it burned in Amina's chest. Emperor Li Xin wasn't dying from divine punishment or mysterious illness. He was dying because his brother wanted his throne. We need to be smart about this, Kofi said. Smarter than we've ever been. Because we're going to get one chance, maybe only one, to expose the truth. And if we fail, we die. Amina nodded, understanding the stakes completely. Over the next few days, she watched Prince Kun carefully. He moved through the palace like someone beloved and trusted, which he was. He visited his brother daily, bringing tea and sympathy. He consulted with ministers about preparing for the inevitable, his voice full of appropriate sorrow. He prayed at temples with perfect public devotion. And behind it all, Amina saw the truth. The way his eyes calculated when he thought no one was watching. The way his hand tightened on his fan when the emperor showed any sign of improvement. The way he asked officials detailed questions about succession laws, always prefaced with, "I hate to think about it, but we must be prepared." He was good at this. Really, really good. Amina also learned about the empress. Emperor Li Xin's wife had been sent to a mountain temple a year ago, supposedly for her own peace of mind. The official story was that watching her husband suffer was too painful, and she needed a spiritual retreat. But servants whispered a different version. They said she was sent away because she failed to produce an heir, that her barrenness was another sign of divine punishment. "It's very sad," Minji told Amina. "The empress was kind. I liked her. But I suppose it's better she's not here to watch the emperor die." Amina understood now. The empress had to be removed because if she got pregnant and there was an heir, Prince Kun's path to the throne would be blocked. The infertility wasn't the empress's fault. It was the poison that made the emperor unable to father children. Everything Prince Kun did served his ultimate goal. Remove the empress, poison the emperor, control the narrative, wait for the perfect moment to finish it. And that moment, Amina realized with growing dread, was coming soon. There was a grand ceremony scheduled, a presentation where Kofi would show his rarest spices to the assembled court. It was a huge honor, the kind of event that took months to arrange. Every noble, every official, every important person in the kingdom would be there. Amina's blood ran cold when she understood. That's when Prince Kun would do it. In front of everyone, at a moment when no one would suspect anything unusual. The emperor would drink his ceremonial tea, as tradition dictated, and this time, the dose would be fatal. It would look like the illness finally won. A tragic but inevitable end, witnessed by hundreds of people who would all testify that it was natural causes. Prince Kun would become emperor, mourned by a kingdom that saw him as a devoted brother who did everything he could. And no one would ever know the truth. Now here's where things get really intense. Amina knows what's going to happen. She knows when it's going to happen. But she's a 10-year-old foreign girl with no power, no proof that anyone will believe, and no idea how to stop a prince who's planned everything perfectly. The ceremony is in 3 days. What would you do if you were in her position? Keep watching, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. The palace buzzed with preparation for the grand ceremony. Servants rushed everywhere with decorations, food, and ceremonial items. Amina felt like she was watching an elaborate trap being set, and she was the only one who could see it. She had 3 days to figure out how to save the emperor's life without getting herself and her father killed. "We could try to speak to the emperor directly," Kofi suggested during one of their careful conversations. They'd taken to walking in the gardens when they needed to talk, where the open air made eavesdropping difficult. "And say what, Papa? Your brother's poisoning you? He'll think we're crazy. Or worse, he'll tell Prince Kun, and then we're both dead before sunset. We could leave, pack up tonight, and go." Amina stopped walking. "You don't mean that?" Her father sighed. "No, I don't. But I'm scared, child. I'm scared of what might happen if we stay. I'm scared too. But I keep thinking about Mama. What about her? You always told me she couldn't walk away from people who needed help. That's why she went into the lower city during the fever outbreak. That's why she caught the sickness herself. She knew it was dangerous, but she went anyway because people needed her." Kofi's eyes got wet. "And it killed her, Amina. That's my point. Sometimes trying to help gets you killed. But she saved 12 people before she got sick. You told me that. 12 people who lived because Mama helped them. Would you take that back? Would you want her to have stayed safe and let those people die? That's not fair. I know, Papa. Nothing about this is fair. They walked in silence for a while. Finally, Kofi spoke. Your mother would have liked Emperor Blasian. He has her kind of gentle heart. Then let's try to save him, like Mama would have. The night before the ceremony, Amina couldn't sleep. She kept going over every possible plan, every scenario. None of them ended well. If she spoke up without proof, she'd be dismissed or executed. If she tried to knock the tea from the emperor's hand, she'd be restrained, and the tea would just be prepared again. If she tried to warn the emperor privately, Prince Kun would hear about it. There had to be a way. There had to be. She thought about her mother's gift, the extraordinary sense of smell that Amina had inherited. All her life, adults had told her it was remarkable, unusual, special. But at this moment, it felt useless. What good was smelling poison if no one believed you? And then it hit her. She couldn't prove Prince Kun was poisoning the emperor, not with evidence the court would accept, but she could prove the tea itself contained poison, in front of everyone, in a way that couldn't be denied. It was risky, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might work. The morning of the ceremony, Amina dressed in her finest clothes. Her hands shook while she tied her sash. Her father noticed. Are you all right? No, Papa, but I'm going to do something today. Something that might get us both in trouble. Kofi's face went very still. Amina, what are you planning? I can't tell you, because then you'd try to stop me or you'd worry too much. Just trust me, okay? And no matter what happens, I need you to back me up. That's not very reassuring. I know, I'm sorry. Her father pulled her into a tight hug. You're so much braver than I ever was. You know that? I'm not brave, Papa. I'm terrified. But I'm doing it anyway. That's the exact definition of bravery. The ceremony hall was packed with people. Nobles in their finest clothes, officials in formal robes, guards stationed at every entrance. Amina had never seen so many important-looking people in one place. Emperor Blasian sat on his throne, looking even paler than usual. The effort of preparing for this public appearance had clearly exhausted him. Prince Kun sat beside him, the picture of fraternal devotion, occasionally leaning over to whisper something supportive. Amina and her father stood with the merchant delegation, off to one side. Kofi would be called forward when it was time for the presentation. And that's when Amina smelled it. The servant carrying the ceremonial tea tray passed close enough for her to catch the scent. Her stomach dropped. The dose was much, much stronger than what she'd detected before. This wasn't the slow poison of the daily doses. This was a killing amount. Prince Kun had chosen this moment, this public ceremony with hundreds of witnesses. The emperor would drink the tea, collapse, and die right here while everyone watched. It would be shocking, tragic, but ultimately just the illness taking its final toll. No one would suspect murder at such a public event. That was the genius of it. The ceremony began. Officials gave speeches, incense burned, musicians played traditional songs. Everything moved with careful ritual precision, building toward the moment when Kofi would present his spices. Amina watched the teacup sitting beside the emperor's hand, watched Prince Kun's careful, patient expression, watched the court officials who had no idea they were about to witness a murder disguised as a natural death. Her heart thundered so hard, she thought everyone must be able to hear it. Kofi was called forward. He walked with dignity, carrying a carved wooden box that held cinnamon bark, one of his rarest items. His voice was steady as he described its properties, its origins, its uses. Emperor Li Xin listened with genuine interest, even in his weakened state. "Remarkable," he said softly. "The distance you've traveled, the knowledge you've gathered. We are honored by your visit, Master Kofi." "The honor is mine, Your Majesty." Traditional protocol demanded that the emperor drink ceremonial tea during such presentations, a gesture of acceptance and blessing. Everyone knew the ritual. Everyone expected it. Prince Kun gestured subtly to the servant, who brought the teacup closer to the emperor's hand. This was it. The moment. The trap is about to spring. Emperor Li Xin reached for the cup with trembling fingers, and Amina stepped forward. Guards moved immediately, hands going to their weapons. A 10-year-old girl breaking protocol, stepping out of the merchant delegation without permission. That was shocking enough. But Amina's voice cut through the sudden tension, clear and loud. "You're not infertile, Your Majesty. You're just being poisoned." The entire room froze. The silence was so complete that Amina could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Emperor Li Xin's hand stopped halfway to the cup. His hollow eyes focused on her with surprise. "What did you say, child?" Every instinct screamed at Amina to run, to apologize, to take it back. But she'd committed now. There was no going back. "That tea smells like dansol root, Your Majesty. My papa uses it to kill rats. It doesn't work fast. It just makes them stop having babies, and then their hearts stop after about a year." The room erupted. Officials shouted. Guards surged forward. Prince Kun rose to his feet, his voice shaking with what sounded like righteous anger. "This child insults the throne. She dares to accuse—" But Amina interrupted him, her fear burning away in the heat of certainty. "I'm not accusing you of anything you haven't already done, Your Highness. Dansol root causes every single symptom the doctors have seen. Hair loss, shaking hands, no babies, weakness, and if the emperor drinks that cup today, he'll be dead before sunset. That's not a curse from the gods. That's just poison." Kofi stepped forward then, his face pale but his voice firm. "Your Majesty, my daughter has never been wrong about plant identification, not once in 10 years. If she says there's dansol root in that tea, then there is." Emperor Li Xin stared at the cup in his hands as he'd never seen it before. Then very slowly he raised his eyes to his brother's face. When he spoke, there was a universe of questions in that single word. "Kun?" Prince Kun's carefully maintained expression was cracking. "She's a child. A foreign child who knows nothing of our customs, our—" Amina cut through his protests with 2 simple words that changed everything. "Then drink it." The silence that followed was absolute. Every person in that hall understood the challenge instantly. Amina kept her eyes on Prince Kun. "If it's medicine, if it's harmless, drink it. You keep telling everyone you'd do anything for your brother, so drink his tea." Prince Kun's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, anger, calculation. "Don't be absurd. That tea is specifically prepared for the emperor's condition." "Drink it," Amina repeated. "Right now. In front of everyone. Prove me wrong." "This is ridiculous. I won't be bullied by a child's wild accusations." Amina turned back to Emperor Li Xin. "Your Majesty, he won't drink it, because he knows exactly what's in it." The emperor's voice when he spoke carried a strength that hadn't been heard in years. "Dr. Yoon, come here. Smell this tea. Tell me what you detect." The elderly physician approached with confusion written all over his face. He took the cup carefully, brought it to his nose, and inhaled deeply. His expression changed from confusion to concentration, to slowly dawning horror. There's the usual blend here, ginseng and ginger, but there's something else, something I'm not certain. It's Dansul root, honored doctor, Amina said gently. I can show you the plant. It grows in the palace gardens, near Prince Kun's private quarters. Dr. Yoon's hands started trembling. He sniffed the tea again, his face going gray. I need to compare it to the actual plant. If this child is correct, then let us go to the garden, Emperor Li Xin said. He stood, swaying slightly, but he stood. Show me. The procession through the palace was surreal. The emperor, Prince Kun, Amina, her father, Dr. Yoon, guards, shocked officials, all moving through the carefully maintained gardens. People who had been attending the ceremony followed, curious and horrified. Amina led them directly to the section where the Dansul root grew. Her hands were shaking now, fear and adrenaline making her fingers clumsy. What if she was wrong? What if it were a different plant? What if... No, she wasn't wrong. She knew plants the way other people knew their own names. There, she said, pointing to the distinctive leaves. That's Dansul root. Dr. Yoon knelt beside the plant. He crushed a leaf between his fingers and brought it to his nose. The color drained from his face. He smelled it again, then looked at the teacup he was still holding, then back at the plant. It's the same, he whispered. Merciful heavens, it's the same scent. Prince Kun's voice rose, desperate and angry. This is a conspiracy. She planted that. She's been here for weeks. She could have... I've been here for 2 weeks, Your Highness, Amina said quietly. Your brother has been sick for 4 years. Dr. Yoon wasn't listening to the argument anymore. His old face was crumbling as realization crashed over him. He turned to look at Prince Kun with devastation in his eyes. You came to me 4 years ago. You told me your brother was showing strange symptoms. You suggested which ancient texts I should consult. You brought me the tea blend, said you'd discovered it in historical records. You called it a remedy. His voice broke completely. I've been helping you poison him. For 4 years, I've been your unwitting accomplice. The old physician turned to Emperor Li Xin, tears streaming down his weathered face. Your Majesty, I have been such a fool. Every symptom, all of it, matches Dansul root poisoning perfectly. The fatigue, the infertility, the tremors, the wasting, and the treatment I prescribed, the tea I thought was helping. I've been... He couldn't finish. The weight of his unknowing participation in the conspiracy was too much. Prince Kun tried to deny it first. This is madness. You're believing a child over me? I would never... But the evidence was right in front of them. The plant, the smell, Dr. Yoon's expert testimony, the Emperor's symptoms, all of it fitting together into an undeniable picture. Kun switched tactics, his voice turning pleading. Brother, you can't possibly believe this. I've dedicated myself to your care. I pray for you daily. I've been trying to save your life. By slowly poisoning me? Emperor Li Xin's voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. For 4 years? No, this is all circumstantial. Just because the plant grows near my quarters doesn't mean... Drink the tea, Amina repeated. If you're innocent, if this is all a terrible mistake, prove it. Drink your brother's tea right now. Prince Kun looked at the cup in Dr. Yoon's shaking hands. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. I don't have to prove anything to a foreign child. You have to prove it to me, Emperor Li Xin said. Your brother, the man you claim to love. Drink the tea, Kun. Something in Prince Kun snapped. Maybe it was the weight of 4 years of careful planning falling apart. Maybe it was seeing his path to the throne crumbling. Maybe it was simply being cornered with no way out. His expression changed, the benevolent mask sliding away to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. You want the truth? His voice was different now, harder. Fine. You were supposed to die 2 years ago. The doses should have killed you by then, but you kept holding on, kept suffering, kept hoping for some miracle that was never going to come. The assembled crowd gasped. Several officials moved to grab him, but guards held them back, waiting for the Emperor's command. Kun continued, words pouring out like poison. I was being merciful, ending your suffering, your pathetic existence. You were weak, brother, too gentle for the throne. I would have been better. I would have made this kingdom strong instead of letting it rot under your soft-hearted rule. I am your brother, Emperor Li Xin said, and the grief in those words was profound. And you were in my way. Prince Kun lunged toward Amina suddenly, rage taking over. She stumbled backwards, but guards intercepted him before he got close. They forced him to his knees, his fine robes dragging in the dirt. The Emperor stared down at his brother, his face a mask of devastation. You are my brother, he repeated. I loved you. Love doesn't make you emperor, Kun spat. Power does. Planning does. I earned that throne through 4 years of careful work, and this child ruins everything. He turned his glare on Amina, who felt suddenly very small and very young, but she met his eyes without flinching. You're right, she said. I ruined your plan. Because it was a bad plan. Killing people is always a bad plan. Guards, Emperor Li Xin said quietly. Take my brother into custody. Investigate everyone who helped him. I want to know the full extent of this conspiracy. As Prince Kun was dragged away, still protesting, still justifying, Amina felt her legs go weak. Her father caught her, steadying her. You did it, Kofi whispered. I can't believe it, but you did it. Is it over? Amina asked. Not yet, but the hard part is done. The investigation that followed uncovered the full scope of Prince Kun's conspiracy. Some servants had been complicit, bribed or threatened into helping. Others were innocent, just following orders without understanding what they were part of. Several court officials who had been promised high positions when Kun became emperor were also arrested. The plot to remove the empress was fully revealed. She wasn't barren. The poison had made the emperor infertile, not her. She had to be sent away before she could conceive an heir that would block Kun's path to the throne. Messengers were sent immediately to bring the empress back from her mountain temple. When she arrived 3 days later and was reunited with her husband, the entire court witnessed their embrace. It spoke of love that had survived even this calculated cruelty. Emperor Li Xin's recovery was slow but steady. Dr. Yoon, seeking redemption for his unwitting role, oversaw the emperor's care with meticulous attention. He documented everything about Dansul root poisoning and its reversal, creating a medical text that would help physicians recognize similar cases in the future. The emperor's hair began growing back. The tremors in his hands gradually subsided. Color returned to his face. The psychological wounds took longer to heal. Betrayal by a brother he'd loved and trusted. That kind of pain didn't fade quickly. But surrounded by his empress and the genuine loyalty of people who truly cared for him, Emperor Li Xin slowly reclaimed not just his health, but his will to live. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the emperor summoned Amina to a private audience. She went nervously, still not entirely sure she wouldn't be punished for the disruption she'd caused. But when she entered, the emperor smiled. A real smile, the first she'd seen from him. Amina, please sit. We need to talk. She sat on the cushion across from him, trying not to fidget. I owe you my life, the Emperor said simply. You risked everything to save a man you barely knew. Why? Amina thought about it carefully. You were kind to me, Your Majesty. When we first met, you asked about my travels and actually listened. Most adults don't really listen to children. And you looked so sad. Nobody should be that sad because someone they love is hurting them. I was dying, the Emperor said quietly, and I had accepted it, believed it was divine punishment for some failure I couldn't identify. The relief of knowing it was just poison, just a solvable problem. You can't imagine what that felt like. I'm glad you're getting better, Your Majesty. Thanks to you. Now I insist on rewarding you properly. Name what you wish, and if it's in my power, it's yours. Amina had thought about this. I want my papa to be the official supplier of medicines to the palace, and I want access to the Royal Library's botanical texts. And, I'd like to visit the Empress. I want to meet her properly. All granted, though I'm curious why you want to meet my wife. Because everyone kept talking about her like she was the problem. Like her being sent away was her fault. But it wasn't. She was just another victim of Prince Kun's plan. I want to tell her that. The Emperor's eyes got wet. You have wisdom beyond your years, child. Later that day, Amina met Empress Jinhua in the garden. The Empress was beautiful, but more importantly, she was kind. She listened while Amina awkwardly explained about the investigation, about how the infertility was never her failing. Thank you, Empress Jinhua said softly, for giving me back my husband, for giving us back our future. I just have a good nose, Amina said, making the Empress laugh. Over the following months, Amina and Kofi established a permanent trade embassy in Hanseong. The Emperor insisted on it, saying he needed people he could trust absolutely. Kofi became a trusted advisor on botanical and medicinal matters. Amina studied with the palace botanists, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Dr. Yoon became like a grandfather to her, teaching her Korean medicinal traditions while learning about plants from the regions she'd traveled. The old physician had aged 10 years in the aftermath of discovering his unwitting role in the poisoning. But teaching Amina seemed to give him a new purpose. You saved me too, he told her once. Not just the Emperor. You saved me from being remembered as the physician who helped murder his patient. Instead, I'll be remembered as the one who helped you save him. You would have figured it out eventually, Amina said. No, child, I wouldn't have. I was too close to it, too convinced by Prince Kun's performance. It took fresh eyes and an extraordinary nose to see the truth. 1 year after the confrontation at the ceremony, Empress Jinhua gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The entire kingdom celebrated. The princess was named Li Hana, which meant one flower, because she had bloomed from such darkness into light. Amina was invited to the naming ceremony, a huge honor. When she held the tiny princess, she marveled at how something so small and perfect had been impossible just a year ago. She wouldn't exist if you hadn't spoken up, the Empress said softly. She's beautiful, Amina replied. I'm glad she gets to exist. Emperor Li Xin looked healthier than Amina had ever seen him. His hair had grown back completely. His hands were steady. His eyes held hope instead of resignation. Amina, he said, walking over to where she held his daughter. I've been thinking about what you said. That day in the garden after everything happened. Do you remember? Which part, Your Majesty? I asked why you spoke up when you knew it might get you executed. You said your father taught you that sometimes the right thing is scary, but you do it anyway. Yes, Your Majesty. I want Hana to grow up with that same courage. Will you help teach her? About plants, about the world beyond our kingdom, about doing what's right even when it's frightening? Amina looked at the tiny princess in her arms, then up at the emperor and empress. I'd be honored, Your Majesty. Minji, who had been promoted to the empress's personal staff after her innocence in "The Conspiracy Was Proven," smiled from her position near the door. She and Amina had remained close friends. You're going to teach a princess, Minji said later when they had a moment alone. How strange is that? Very strange, Amina agreed. A year ago, I was just a merchant's daughter traveling dusty roads. Now I'm a palace botanist with a princess for a student. Do you miss traveling? Sometimes, but there's so much to learn here, and the emperor needs people he can trust. After what his brother did, trust is precious. Prince Kun's trial had been swift. The evidence was overwhelming. His confession was witnessed by hundreds. He was stripped of his title and exiled to a remote province, forbidden from ever returning to the capital. Some had called for execution, but Emperor Li Xin refused. He's still my brother, the emperor had said. I won't kill him, but I can't have him near me either. Amina had watched the sentencing from the back of the hall. Prince Kun looked diminished somehow, all his charisma and charm gone. When his eyes met hers, she saw hatred there, but also defeat. She didn't feel triumphant, just sad that things had come to this. You're thinking about him, her father said, finding her in the garden one evening. How did you know? You get this expression, like you're trying to solve a problem that has no good answer. Amina sighed. I saved the emperor. That was the right thing to do. But I also destroyed Prince Kun's life. Prince Kun destroyed his own life when he chose poison over patience. You just stopped him from destroying someone else's life too. I know, it's just complicated. The right thing often is. Kofi sat beside his daughter. Your mother used to say that doing good doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels messy and hard and uncertain, but you do it anyway. I miss her. Me too. But she'd be so proud of you, Amina. So incredibly proud. They sat, together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Hanseong. Amina thought about everything that had happened in the past year. The journey to the palace, detecting the poison, befriending Minji, confronting Prince Kun, and saving the emperor. It had been terrifying, dangerous. The kind of adventure that could have ended very badly, but it hadn't. Instead, it had ended with a baby princess sleeping peacefully in the palace, with an emperor recovering his health, and with an empress restored to her rightful place. It had ended with justice, healing, and hope. Sometimes, Amina thought, having a good nose was about more than just smelling plants. It was about sniffing out the truth when everyone else was too close to see it. It was about detecting what was rotten underneath the pretty surface, and sometimes, just sometimes, a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary gift could change everything. Papa? She said quietly. Yes. I'm glad we stayed. I'm glad. We didn't run away. Kofi hugged his daughter close. Me too. Even though it scared me half to death. That's what being brave means, right? Being scared but doing it anyway? Exactly right. Now come on. Dr. Yoon is expecting you for your lesson on winter herbs. As they walked back toward the palace, Amina took one last look at the garden. It had been cleansed of all poisonous plants, replanted with healing herbs and flowers. Where death had once grown in secret, now life flourished openly. It was a good metaphor, she thought. For the palace, for the kingdom, For everything that had changed since that day, she'd stepped forward and said 6 impossible words. You're not broken. You're just being pickled. Who knew that pickled emperors and brave children would make such a good combination? So there you have it. The story of how a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary sense of smell saved an emperor, exposed a conspiracy, and changed the course of a kingdom. What did you think? Could you have been as brave as Amina? Would you have spoken up even knowing it might cost you everything? Let me know in the comments. And if you love this story, make sure to like and subscribe because I've got more historical adventures coming your way. Trust me, you won't want to miss them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.